Okay, Chair, we are now live.
Welcome. I would like to welcome everyone to the May 14th meeting of the East Lansing Downtown Development Authority. We are conducting this meeting via Zoom. I want to thank everyone that has suffered along with the last couple meetings. I'm now, with the help of Tom and Heather and others with the city staff, being able to access, and hopefully I'll be able to see everyone a little more clearly and have a more efficient meeting. I want to remind remind members of the public that everyone will have an opportunity to address the board during public comment. During our public hearing section of the meeting, I will also remind board members that we will be called on. I'll be able to see you now and hopefully be able to call you as you wave. A board member may elect to pass if they do not have a comment. Board members are reminded to state their name before speaking or making a motion. And all votes will be taken by roll call vote. Maybe that may not be necessary as now that we can see each other. With that, I would like to call the roll. Chad, if you could call the roll for us, please.
Yes, sir. Ballline.
Here.
Mayor Byer.
Here.
Clayton.
Here.
Kroom.
Here.
Dewan.
Present.
Hackney.
Present.
Kruger.
Here.
Lahanas.
Here.
Rhodey.
Here.
Smith. Jeff Smith with us?
No.
That completes a roll call.
Thank you. We do have a quorum. We'll move on our agenda to the approval of the agenda. Are there any changes at the present time? I'll ask staff that question. Heather?
No changes.
Okay, a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I'll offer that motion and ask for a second.
Support.
It's supported by Luke Hackney. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion to approve the agenda has been adopted. We do need to adopt the time limit for public comments. And I will offer the following motion. In order to maintain the order of an online meeting, I move to adopt a rule pursuant to MCL 15.2631, limiting public comment to 2 minutes per individual for all electronic meetings held by the DDA, and ask for a second.
Luke Hackney, support.
It's been seconded by Luke Hackney. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The time limit has been adopted. In our packets, we have the minutes from the April 30th meeting, and I ask if there are any changes to those minutes or corrections. Seeing none, I will move to approve the minutes of the April 30th meeting and ask for a second.
Luke Hackney, support.
It's been seconded by Luke. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes from the April 30th meeting are adopted. We have in our packets note a email from Mr. Paul Vlahakis, if members will take note. We will move on to item 3 in our agenda, the communication from the public. And each caller in the queue, and I don't know if there are callers in the queue, will have 2 minutes to address the board. At the end of the 2 minutes, they will be placed back on mute. And if callers will be identified by the last 3 digits of their phone number. If you do not wish to speak, you can just simply say pass. And this will be helpful in the flow of our meeting. So I will turn it back to Nicole to let me know if there are any people in the queue.
Thank you, Chair. There are 3 attendees in the queue. The first caller is a phone number ending in 165. 165, you may now address the board.
Hello, caller.
Caller
Pass.
165. Thank you. Okay, the next caller in the queue is a phone number ending in 069.
Hi, this is Dylan Fleet. I'll be available to answer any questions per the agenda items coming up.
Thank you. The final caller in the queue is caller with the phone number ending in 963.
Hi, this is Alice Drager, 621 Sunset Lane. Under item 6.3, you have a new item that was just added today. It's the last item there. It is a memo from the city attorney to Tom Fehrenbach dated April 23rd, but it was only provided on the agenda today. This is a memo that should have been provided to the DDA at least before its meeting on April 30th because it's relevant to the discussion you had on April 30th. It addresses a question I've been getting from people. I want to make clear nobody has any problem in principle with giving money to small businesses in East Lansing to help them survive. But people have been asking me by what right the East Lansing DDA can spend money from the DDA by granting it to businesses for private operations. It is at best an irregular use of DDA funds, and some have suggested it may actually be an illegal use of DDA funds. As you can see from this memo that was added today, Tom Yaden and Tom Fehrenbach had an exchange on April 23rd about the legality of this. Tom Yaden made the usual "we can defend this in court" argument. What's troubling to me is that the memo was written and provided to city staff on April 23rd, and it was essentially legal advice to the DDA. It was not clear whether it was written before or after the DDA's meeting on April 23rd, but it was certainly produced a full week before the DDA's April 30th meeting. But it was not provided to the DDA or the public for that discussion, where the DDA might have appropriately had a conversation about this question of legality and appropriateness and not be raising it today, which is an awkward day to be raising it. It was also not provided on the agenda until today, which makes me wonder how many DDA members have even had the time to see it. It is also, in my opinion, filed under the wrong item. It ought to have been filed under 6.2, the grant issue, not 6.3. I want to be clear, I'm not saying it's a bad idea to give businesses help to survive. I'm making the point that this is an important legal opinion for the DDA that was not given to the DDA in an appropriate way. Thank you.
Caller, you have 30. Oh, excellent. Sorry to interrupt you at the
Thanks,
end.
Nicole. Thank you, Nicole.
Are there any additional members of the public that wish to address the DDA?
Those are all the callers in the queue.
Okay, seeing none, we will close the public comment section of the meeting and move on to our business agenda, item 4.1, the rescinding of the April 23rd approval of the fiscal year 21 budget and tax rate resolution. And Heather, are you going to speak to that?
I'll speak to this, Peter.
Hey, Tom, this is Nicole.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Another caller did just join the queue, and I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. If you'd like to call on them or continue with the meeting.
You know, let's go back to the public comment section of our meeting. And if that caller can address the DDA, then we'll move on to our business item.
Thank you. This is the caller with the phone number ending in 446.
Yes.
You
Go
may
ahead, caller.
board if you'd like.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead, caller.
You can hear me. Okay. This is Bill from Sundance Jewelers. Audrey just put me on. I'll keep it real short. My feeling on on the funds as far as the distribution was, I understand that there were less applicants than was originally anticipated, and Audrey and I have talked about this a bit and come up with a couple of scenarios or ideas, and I kind of feel that an equitable distribution amongst the applicants would be a really good option. The other thing is that I know that there was kind of a vetting process, or that through LEAP, and that, potentially you could continue with that. And if there was a distribution of the 2,500 to the applicants that had, and then potentially have them go through and see who they felt were best suited or most in need for the balance of the money, and have, those people essentially participate in the process as it was originally intended, where the applications were kind of graded and look forward, and then there would be a certain segment that may benefit slightly more. I think there was a discussion as to whether that might be more impactful, I guess, for certain people. I know, we participated in the original, LEAP program, and, that had a nice large amount of $10,000. Unfortunately, what that really only amounted to was something kind of like a lottery. I mean, if you looked at the amount of applicants in relationship to the amount of grants, it was about a 1 in 35 chance, of getting that. But anyhow, we
Just
are,
wanted to let you know you have 30 seconds remaining.
okay.
Go
Well,
ahead.
but what we would like to know is, we're certainly appreciative of any assistance. In the midst of all of this, my feeling is that as a business owner, I've got a pretty good idea, what to do with the money and how that would best improve our situation and impact our business. And so, I think direct to the businesses, the funds, and I think we're all going to know how to use them, because we need it right now. So that's about it.
Thank you very much, Bill, for calling in. We respect and appreciate your input. Nicole, are there any additional callers before we move on to our business item?
Thank you. There are no other callers in the queue at this time.
Okay, and thank everyone for calling in and addressing the board. We'll move on to item 4.1, and Tom Fehrenbach, you were going to discuss the budget and tax resolution.
Yes. So after your action on 423 to approve this item without a public hearing and some conversation about public hearing, we actually did determine that a public hearing at the DDA as opposed to the city council for the budget and tax rate resolution is most appropriate. Staff has duly noted a public hearing, and we recommend that you rescind your previous action to approve the budget and tax rate resolution for fiscal year 21. Then hold a public hearing, then consider the budget and tax rate resolution as part of your business agenda. This will be our process moving forward, and we appreciate your patience with us for the issue.
Thank you. I appreciate the comments that were made by DDA board members to make certain that we got this right. I believe Lindsay helped point this out, and I appreciate the time that staff has put into making certain that we're following through on this accordingly. So I am going to offer a motion to rescind our April 23rd approval of the fiscal year 21 budget and tax rate resolution, and ask for a second.
Second, this is Lindsay. I'll second it.
It's been seconded by Lindsay. I don't know if there's any additional comments or discussion that board members wish to have. Seeing none, we will just simply go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, very good. Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. We will now go on to item 5.1, where we will open up a public hearing on the proposed fiscal year 2021 Downtown Development Authority budget and the consideration of a property tax millage rate proposed to be levied to support our proposed budget. In our packets, we have a draft resolution, which we will consider, which proposes to levy 1.7007 mils of tax on each 1,000 of taxable value on the real and tangible personal property not exempt by law on all properties located within the Downtown Development Authority District for the purposes of financing the operations of the Downtown Development Authority. At this time, we will open up a public hearing and allow any members of the public who wish to address us on this item to do so at this time.
Thank you. We can go down the list again of callers. The first caller on the list is phone number 165.
Pass.
Thank you. The next caller in the list is caller ending in 069.
Pass as well.
The next caller in the list is caller ending in 963.
Hi, this is Alice Dreger again. The Evergreen properties are one of the biggest financial problems that the DDA and the city face, as you know. We've talked with this developer, including he very helpfully had a meeting with my neighborhood last week, and so far they have not provided evidence of viability for this project or any information or clarification about what they're seeking in terms of the tax incentives or other forms of public support. Their original proposal indicated $14 million in public support, but there was no explanation. We've been provided no explanation of what that would look like. The reason that Convexity pulled out of this RFP is that they had a clear plan with a clear pro forma, and it became financially non-viable with the tax assessment change. We have no idea whether or not the Citadel is viable because we have no information about the pro forma, the TIF, the tenants, et cetera. I don't think anybody has a problem with the basic idea that is proposed in the Citadel, but it is concerning that we don't really have a plan of how this is going to be managed. The agenda indicates formation of a committee to work with the developer. That's a good idea. But you, the DDA, need to establish clear benchmarks now of what will cause you to renew or not to renew the exclusive agreement at the end of the 90-day period. You can't wait till the end of the 90-day period and then decide what's going to cause you to renew or not renew. Otherwise, you're going to drag this one out for another year like the last one. So I would suggest you have at least two clear benchmarks you want to see at the end of this 90-day period. First, clear evidence of viability of a 250,000 square foot building that is non-residential and commercial in this location in East Lansing. And the second, a very clear statement of what the developer is seeking in terms of public incentives. If it turns out that you learn, for example, that they're seeking 30 years, 100% TIF, then you know what you're looking at. And that gives you the opportunity to go back out on the market to see what other developers might offer in exchange for 30 years, 100% TIF. If they're asking for less than that,
yeah, 30 seconds remaining.
If they're asking for less than that, then you know you're looking at less than that. Set benchmarks for this developer to meet by the end of the 90 days. Don't just dawdle over pretty pictures and grand ideas. We've done that too many times. This debt is looming and we have a serious problem. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate the public comment. We will close the public comment portion of this public hearing, and I will turn it over to staff to give their report on the resolution.
So Heather gave an overview on the 23rd. If there's any questions for staff, we'd be happy to take them.
I do
See
have,
no. Go
I
ahead,
do
Lindsay.
have, this is Lindsay.
Go ahead,
I do
Lindsay.
have one question moving forward. I realize that everyone that's paying into the are we talking or into this specific millage has the opportunity to know that this is coming up? Do we specifically send out notifications to them?
It's part of their tax bill that they receive.
Okay. Because like on a site plan and things like that, you're notified exactly when it's going to be on the agenda. And I just, in the future, I would love if somehow if we could make sure that I don't know if we send this out to them via email or we send like an actual mail document to them, but I would like them to know exactly when this is going to be on the agenda.
No, you said.
Are there any other questions of staff? Thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to, I will move approval of the fiscal year 2021 budget and the adoption of the resolution to levy, subject to the city council's approval, 1.7007 mils of tax on each 1,000 of taxable value of the real and tangible personal property not exempt by law on all properties located within the DDA district for the purpose of financing the operations of the DDA, and ask for a second.
Support.
It's been seconded by Luke. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, the motion to approve the resolution passes unanimously. We will move on to our business agenda item 6.1, the DDA, 6.2, consideration of our grant award recipients for the business relief program. And Heather, are you going to address this item, or is it Tom?
I'll start. Yeah, I'll start, and Heather can back me up as necessary. So as you're aware, on April 23rd, the DDA approved a grant program in partnership with the Lansing Economic Area Partnership to award up to 100 relief grants to eligible DDA businesses in the district in the amount of $2,500 each. On April 30th, actually, just to go back to April 23rd for a moment to address Ms. Drager's questions, we actually did include the city attorney's memo prior to the meeting as appropriate, as we did have some concerns around the legality. On April 30th, the DDA established the program eligibility criteria and the question set and directed staff to launch the program in short order. Based on the criteria, staff is recommending here that 57 businesses listed in the attachment on your packet received the award of $2,500 each. In evaluating the 76 responses, we did become aware of an effect of the criteria that we thought the DDA would want to be aware of as well. As written and applied, the DDA criteria eliminated businesses with any delinquency in the city as of March 14th from eligibility. 12 businesses were considered delinquent, ranging from very small amounts to some significant amounts. And based on the criteria and in fairness, staff is not able to recommend any support to those ineligible for this program, but the DDA may wish to consider this situation as part of your next agenda item. So to reiterate, the staff is recommending that the DDA award 57 grants of $2,500 each to the companies listed in the staff memo. Be happy to take any questions that you have.
Are there questions of staff? Heather?
Yes.
Now, can you, perhaps I'm doing something wrong, but can you minimize the memo? I'm only seeing Tom on my screen. I don't see other participants.
Sorry.
Oh, that's
There you go.
unfortunate. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
kidding. How do I do that, gang?
You should be able to see everybody now.
You might have to click on the thing that looks like a checkerboard,
Up in the right corner.
Peter. That works?
Sorry, I'm sorry.
It'll
I
be
got you.
titled Speaker View.
Yeah, no, I have it. I'm sorry.
No problem.
So is there anyone that wishes to speak on this item? So just as a point of clarification,
Hey.
Tom. Yes, go ahead, Michael.
I believe in keeping with what I had to do last week, I need to recuse myself from any more discussion on this matter, seeing as that I applied for one of the grants.
I'll make a motion to recuse Michael.
Luke Hackney, support.
It's been supported by Luke. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Michael's recused. Thank you, Michael, for bringing that to our attention. Is there anyone else that wishes to address staff or has questions? Go ahead, Luke.
Yeah, thank you. I guess I am curious if we can hear more, or if Mr. Yaden would speak on to Mrs. Drager's comments in the public comment regarding the legality of doling out these funds.
Mr. Yaden?
Yeah, as the memo indicates, there's no specific authority for this type of grant to these individual businesses, but given the unique circumstances involved, it was my conclusion that we could lawfully proceed with this program.
Can I have a follow-up question on that, please?
Sure.
Thank you. My only other question is would it have been less of a concern had we divvied it all out equally amongst the DDA businesses that had paid into it, as some sort of, almost the way I view it is as a tax return of some nature?
No, I don't. I think the concern would have stayed the same regardless, because once it's in the DDA hands, it's public funds.
Okay.
And so I think the same level of concern was there with regard to any type of program that would get the money back into the hands of private businesses.
Thank you.
Are there additional questions?
So a quick question, George here.
Go ahead, George.
Are we looking for recommendations or discussion on how to use the residual money, or what to do with the residual money at this point? Or are we just reporting back on the fact that there were 76 people?
So
the next item on your agenda is the additional options for business support. So I think that would be appropriate under that item.
That part. Okay. I'll just wait then.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next item on our agenda. And if we have to come back to formally approve the expenditure of the grants, we can do so. But let's have a further discussion about additional business support programs that may be available. And Tom, are you going to report on those items?
Certainly. So you're not taking action on the last item. You're going to move on to the next one.
It sounded like to me that there was some questions about what the remaining dollars would be used for.
That's what I was wondering. Should we just take action on that and then get to the next item, or should we just do it in sequence and take action first on the 76 and then go to the next portion? Is that the cleanest way to do this?
I agree. So let us. I will move to accept the recommendations of staff and award the grants to the recipients who made application and were eligible and qualified, and for our first round of our business relief program, and ask for a second.
Second from George.
It's been seconded by George. All those in favor say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that the grants are awarded unanimously by the DDA. Let's move on to item 6.3.
I'm sorry. We need to bring Mike back to the table. I'd like to make a motion to bring him back to the meeting.
Thank you, Lindsay.
I'll support.
It's been moved by Lindsay, supported by Luke, to bring Mike back into the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
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 So Mike, thank you for rejoining us. And we can move on
Thank
to
you.
item 6.3. Did you have an additional comment, Lindsay, before we proceed to item 6.3? Thank you. All right, Tom, can you address the additional business support items?
Certainly. So staff is still working.
Heather has her hand up.
Heather?
So there was a sub-grant agreement and we included in the packet. This is the grant agreement that the businesses will enter into. It's just here for your review. And then the 2 reporting requirements. There's 2 reports that they'll submit, and this is just here for the DDA's review. But I did want you to note that those are included in the packet also.
Thank you.
Yep.
Go ahead, Tom.
Okay. Hey, thanks, Heather. So staff is still working on other business support opportunities for the DDA to consider. Obviously, we're in an unprecedented situation. In April, the DDA discussed the gift card concept that's still included in your packet. And also there's been board member and community interest in a direct payment of funds to brick and mortar businesses in the district. Staff has provided some context and some policy questions in the memo for your consideration if you decide to pursue that idea. There's also an emerging concept which seems to be getting some traction regarding outdoor seating expansion and expansion of opportunities for downtown businesses. This was discussed yesterday at the Public Policy and Market Development Committee, and I was hoping Heather, who's been working closely on this, could give us kind of an up to the minute in terms of where we are, and would invite also members of the committee to chime in as well. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Heather.
So we've been working on this concept of closing Albert Avenue to expand dining for the restaurants. We're looking at the area of Albert Avenue. We would close just east of the exit and entrance of the new parking structure. And we'd head east and it would be closed all the way down to MAC. There would also be a road closure at Grove. And within this expanded area, about this road closure for expanded area for outdoor dining, there would be picnic tables that would be placed 12 feet apart. There would be designated pathways to keep social distancing and along with markings so people are aware of where they should be. We also are looking at putting in a 12-foot lane, and this would be a clear path for emergency vehicles, police, fire. The fire department does have an ATV that they can bring down and put in storage in either the Grove Street parking garage or another close location so that if there was an incident, they could get there quicker without having to bring a fire vehicle in. So we would also have hand washing stations on site. And this is something they're also doing at the farmer's market along with signage throughout the site. And we're also looking at expanding and putting additional signage throughout the downtown, just reminding people about social distancing. So we have that underway. At this time, our Department of Public Works is putting together a design layout of how this would work. We are then going to meet again as a team. There's a number of us in different departments working on this to make sure that we think of everybody's needs, police, fire, public works, all of that staff. There's some other things we need to think about of having the tables wiped down, any type of additional, staff time that will be spent doing extra work in this area, getting bollards set up, getting things painted, all of those types of things. But we are working on this quickly. I expect that we'll probably have a plan, a draft plan of the layout early next week, and we'll meet as a team and keep this idea moving forward. And we did speak with this at length yesterday at the Public Policy Committee meeting, so I'd ask Lindsay and Mike and others to weigh in on their feeling on this and looking at other areas also.
So
go ahead, Lindsay.
So one thing that was discussed was alcohol and how you serve alcohol for businesses that have alcohol that they want to serve. And I know that the city that the city council members that were at our meeting all said that they are looking at possibly doing some kind of short-term changes to allowing alcohol in some of those public spaces. So I think that'll be an interesting thing to kind of see how that evolves. Also, we had talked about possibly doing something like this in Valley Court. And I know that personally, I am very interested in seeing this at the Bailey surface lot on like possibly half of the lot or a portion of the lot, because there are a lot of businesses down there that serve food and beverage. So that's the only thing I think. Anything else, Michael? What about you, Luke? Anyone?
I don't think so. That pretty much sums it up.
No, I'm good.
Thank you, Lindsay.
George here. George here, if I get a chance. Did we want to quickly address how we thought we would handle the alcohol issue? I'm not sure if we touched upon that, or what our prospective plan is. I mean, I know we don't have a solution for that yet, but
I would like to,
Mayor Byer?
yes, I would like to hear the explanation about alcohol.
So this is something that is just in its infancy, so it has not gone to council yet, and it would need to go to council for approval. But the thought would be, and Tom, City Attorney Yaden came up with, I think, a good idea, which is if we had like hours of operation for this area, let's just say 11 in the morning to 10 at night, we're just putting ideas out at this point, and then have people who purchase alcohol in restaurants within the downtown can basically take those to go. So you can get your burger and your beer to go at a restaurant. So it's a licensed restaurant for us. And then you could sit at the tables like a food court and eat and drink your beer during that time legally. But you couldn't, for instance, bring a case of beer from a package store or from home and sit down at a table and drink beer. So basically it would be allowing people to have a alcohol drink that they get from the establishment that's complementary to their meal, sort of, is the idea. So it's to encourage people, you know, we all know, obviously everyone doesn't drink, but there are many adults who don't want to come downtown to have a burger at night unless they can have a beer with it. So I think that that's kind of an important part to consider, is allowing the establishments that can serve takeaway alcohol, you know, a beer, a glass of wine, whatever it may be, and that people can take that food and that alcoholic drink and sit down at the tables and basically, you know, you think about it as a food court. Obviously, instead of being in a mall, it's in a downtown street, which is, you know, I think hopefully more exciting, and that they sit with their drink and their food and eat and drink in the evening. And then it's limited to hours. It's limited to where you can get the alcohol from. I don't know if I covered that okay. Tom, Mr. Yaden, did you want to, is there anything to add, or did I miss anything on that?
George, let's have Michael weigh in with his expertise.
Okay.
Michael, I saw your hand raised.
Yeah, thank you. Just a quick comment to go along with that, George. I don't know if you guys did any research whether or not that having the alcohol to go. I know that we can do, you know, certain restaurants who have the designated SDM license can actually serve alcohol to go legally, but it's only beer and wine. It does not include liquor. So would the establishment, or would the public area be subject to essentially the SDM license of the restaurant, or would any restaurant be able to allow? I mean, technically, per liquor law, we can't sell to go unless we have that license, and then we also cannot sell mixed drinks to go at this point. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear one way or another whenever we go ahead to make this kind of decision.
Mr. Yaden would have to give us his expertise on that one.
We did discuss that issue, and we were unaware if the state had made any accommodations for that type of liquor license issue to allow the licenses to do something of that nature under their current licensing. So that's one of the things we were looking into.
There was a petition out there for it, but it's not been approved yet, just so you're aware.
So hopefully, as this becomes more commonplace, the state will draft some rules to allow it. Obviously we can't permit it absent, without we could permit it, but the State Liquor Control Commission could still enforce their rules. So that's one of the issues we need to look into. One of the thoughts is to, if that doesn't happen, one of the thoughts is to try to license areas of the streets and sidewalks like we do currently with some of the establishments where they have licensed outdoor dining areas. And that might be something that might be a little more palatable with the state if we actually basically expand the footprint of the restaurant into the city streets.
So I have a question maybe directed at staff and perhaps the mayor if you wish to weigh in. What is, I know there are plans evolving, there are items that you have to work through as far as how the liquor licenses are applicable, what designated areas, as Lindsay brought up, we will be able to utilize. What is the coordinated strategy as far as drawing in perhaps all the different opinions or boards and commissions that would be looking at trying to allow for a consensus of opinion so we can move rather expeditiously? Does there need to be like a working subgroup that will report to maybe the DDA and the council, or what does that look like? Because there are transportation issues, there are DDA issues, there are public health issues. I'm just curious what the idea is from the staff perspective of how we coordinate this effort.
So hang on a second, George. So the way I was looking at it is this is really a staff assignment. So staff is going to develop it, staff's going to develop the proposal, bring it to DDA. So the committee that we thought was that we'd actually have to talk about approval would be DDA, or recommendation at least to the city council. So staff will talk to transportation, staff will talk to public health and that kind of thing. But the only other group that we thought we wanted a lot of input from was DDA. That was my perspective. It might have been simplistic.
Yeah, I think that sounds right, because we're trying to figure out some way to get this implemented as quickly as possible. And obviously, the more complexity we add to it, the slower the time. And we're trying to get something, considering we're back in June, I think we all think that hopefully in some way we'll be back in June. I'm not sure of that. We can't guarantee it. But we want to be, that's only 2 weeks away at this point to the start of June. So I think that we're thinking staff comes up with immediate recommendations that we can sort of start to get to DDA and council's approval, DDA's recommendation for yes, and then begin moving forward directly. So Tom, do you have anything to add to that, Fehrenbach?
I agree. I think, we're looking at an iterative approach. We want to get something started quickly. We're going to try to come up with a simple program that we can implement as we continue to investigate some of the more thorny policy issues. We want to get something going now and then also continue to iterate on that plan.
Lindsay?
So it's really important to me that concurrently we are having this group look at options for specific businesses. And I know I keep bringing this up, like Big Apple Bagel. I know these are not in the DDA, but we do have, like, Brookfield Plaza is in our DDA. And it is incredibly important to me that we be looking at ways to allow people to use their parking lots for private establishments on private property to also expand on this. So anything that we do, I will only be supporting if we are looking at both the public and the private utilization of these spaces. And I think they need to be rolled out concurrently, because if we allow just Albert, that's not helping a substantial amount of our business population in this community.
So I agree with you, Lindsay. I was first thinking about Albert just because, I was thinking about the DDA, but I agree. I think, and I will ask staff to do this as well. I think we may have already talked about it, George, I can't remember, that up at Brookfield, also Crunchies doesn't have a lot of outdoor space, but there's that lot right next door. Maybe they can work something out there. All over Trowbridge area, maybe. If we could do it safely, I would like to also do that. There's no reason to limit it to the downtown.
But when we do that, that needs to involve planning commission as well, because that has to do with special, like having some kind of sunsetting, like overlay for special use permits and things like that.
It may well involve planning. I'll leave that up to staff.
Yeah, but well, I mean, I was on planning commission for 9 years, so I have to believe that when we do things that have to do with their SUPs and site plans, I just want to make sure that we are doing this as expeditiously as possible.
Any other questions of staff? Thank you for everyone's input. So as far as a timeline, and I know there's a lot of work that needs to be done, is it realistic to think that the DDA would address this at our June meeting? And I don't know.
No, I think we're going to need to meet quicker than that.
Okay.
And there may be some other opportunities as well that the DDA can take advantage of in terms of other programs. The MEDC just last night announced a Match on Main program that just opened and will close on the 29th of May. So if we want to take advantage of that, we'd also need to meet prior. So I think we're probably looking at meeting, that week of the, not next week, but the following week.
So likely we would be calling a special meeting of the DDA the last week of May.
I think that's appropriate.
Okay, just so we have a timetable. Yeah, go ahead, Jill.
Is there a budget for this? Do we have to buy the picnic tables? Is there something that we should consider? We have to set some money aside for it, or?
So we were
Actually,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Tom, go ahead.
There will certainly be some expenditure items. I think Heather mentioned kind of the buckets we're aware of at the moment, which would be exactly like you said, tables, maybe some kind of stanchions, signage, cleanliness items, whether that be hiring custodial folks, security. Those are the things we're kind of aware of. We're investigating those, and I think that would be part of our calculus for bringing this back for your consideration. You may want to decide to earmark some funds. I wouldn't know kind of how to guesstimate an amount that would be appropriate at this point, but we certainly are investigating that, and we'll have that information in short order.
Okay, go ahead, Luke.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Two things. One, I would recommend to staff that they possibly reach out to like REO Town or Old Town or, other neighboring places that deal with this regularly and actively, have done things like this for years, that you're just dipping. I mean, REO Town, I know for a fact, like all the picnic tables there are ones that were bought by the, the commercial association. So they might have some guidance for you. What was the other thing I was going to say? Yeah, I would just moving forward, I don't think I'd feel comfortable approving any sort of money without knowing exactly what we're paying for. I think we need to get in a better habit of actually looking at contracts and invoices before we approve them.
Thank you, Luke. Michael, did you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one more piece that was a part of our discussion yesterday that just came to mind. And that was that, if and when we are, I speak for restaurants specifically, to reopen, more than likely we're going to be at a percentage of our normal capacity, probably 25 to 50%, depending on the situation. And one of the things that I brought up yesterday, and I'm not sure if this is something that that Tom needs to look into or who needs to look into it, but whether or not we can count our indoor capacity as our indoor capacity and not include our outdoor capacity as a part of that. If we're looking to push, to expanded service areas, I don't know, that may only apply to those of us with enclosed patios, not necessarily to those restaurants who are going to be serving to-go stuff to be taken out into, a public area like Valley Court or along Albert. But I don't know if there is any chance of, looking into that as an option. So just wanted to bring that out there.
So thank you for that. We heard you yesterday,
Yeah.
and it's definitely something we're investigating. And I would encourage you and any other folks who have ideas like that or thoughts about things you might need to certainly bring those to our attention.
So also one of the thoughts of trying to make this where it's a takeout and they're going into a common area that's not attributed to the restaurant is that hopefully it doesn't limit the restaurant's capacity. So if the restaurant can only have 25% capacity on your patio and in your restaurant, this takeout would be, we think, would be an addition to, right? So that wouldn't count against your capacity. So it actually in some way adds to all the restaurant's capacity. And, it's not exclusive to the people who are right alongside facing that area. Let's say Beggar's Banquet or any other restaurant that's nearby. If someone takes takeout and they walk and sit at these tables, the tables wouldn't be designated for a particular restaurant. It's just like a food court. So part of the thought of being able to expand that a little bit.
And that makes sense. And I guess my question was more of whether or not it was a City of East Lansing ordinance that requires our capacity on our patio to be counted as a part of our indoor capacity, whether that's something exclusive to our city or whether that is a...
Yeah. Tom, could you answer that question?
Yeah, whether that's liquor control. So, yeah.
It's the fire. It's so that when if you have a fire, it's for like bad weather, isn't it? Like they have to be able to come in and you have to meet the fire code if you have bad weather.
Right.
Right. Like
I understand that it's a requirement of that, but
the 50% is, I think,
there
Tom, did you want to add anything, Yaden, to that?
No, I don't think it's specific to East Lansing. I think Lindsay's correct. A lot of it has to do with the fire code. Go ahead.
Right. So if it's a legal matter, an MLCC matter I understand the fire code portion of it, but that being said, if we're required to be at 50% capacity when, for us, we normally hold 108 people. If I can only let 54 people in here, that doesn't mean that there's not room for 20 more people to run inside if there's a storm that are supposed to be on the patio, And so I don't know if we can work around those rules for this or whether we just have to strictly abide by them.
And I think a lot of that's going to depend on what the rules are for reopening that the governor implements and the health department implement, as far as, that's kind of an unknown, where you're going to be able to count capacities and not, or if there's room to interpret those orders one way or the other.
And again, that will be on our radar. And again, other issues like that, please bring them to our attention so that they are. And as things unfold, we'll be keeping those things in mind and hopefully providing some guidance to folks about how to best utilize the rules.
Thank you. And there's multiple layers to this, clearly, and I'm certain that we will employ really creative solutions wherever possible. So there are other items that were offered as far as additional support programs. Do you wish to address any of those now? Any DDA members or staff? Would you like to?
I had a quick. Did staff have a recommendation? A thought would be that we give a second round with the same amount of money, the residual. We had room for 24 more grants. Do you give people a chance, a new date by which to pay their, anything that they're delinquent on? So you can't apply if you already got the 2,500. But if you hadn't gotten the 2,500, give a new date with a new date to have your clear, no delinquencies to the city. And then if someone had owed $100 and they applied, they could come in and pay the $100 and then apply and still be eligible. Any thought about that being a possibility, just so we're not excluding this cadre of businesses that applied that didn't get a chance to wipe out their obligation?
I think we have a number of people that would like to address this issue, so I'm just going to call them in the order that I've seen their hands raised. So Lindsay, and then Luke, and then let's get a lot of ideas out on the table, and then staff can be prepared to respond. Lindsay? I don't hear.
I think you're muted.
You're muted.
I don't have any comments. I'm gonna listen.
Okay.
Okay.
Lou,
I appreciate Mr. Lahanas's idea, but I think that you would actually be excluding, who knows how many businesses that didn't apply because they didn't think they would be eligible because they did know they owed money. It's almost an unfair advantage.
Well, they would be able to apply now, right?
You're saying
Sorry, go ahead,
anybody
Tom.
could reapply, not just the 20 businesses that were cut loose?
I hadn't thought of it all the time, but I thought anyone could reapply as long as we didn't run out of grant money.
Gotcha.
But go ahead. I just thought.
so I believe Jill had a question, and then maybe we'll turn it over to Tom Fehrenbach to follow up on a lot of these ideas that are being offered. Jill?
As a lifelong municipal finance person and a former city treasurer, if you're delinquent to the city, to me, that's a big deal. Now, if it was their water bill, that's one thing. But if it's their taxes and they haven't paid their taxes, I don't think we want to share our tax revenue with them. I mean, that's just my opinion.
Thank you. Tom, do you want to follow up a little bit?
Sure. So we did think through what the options might be. And I think if you wish to do a second wave of this program, the fairest way to do it would be to basically launch a second program and to augment your eligibility criteria to allow for either a portion of the grant to pay off any delinquency or the delinquency up to a certain amount, et cetera. And I forgot to mention in the last item, but LEAP, based on the number of applications we received and the fact that they didn't need to do the scoring, they did cut their fee by 50%. And so we did talk to them about if they would have interest in doing a second program if the DDA so desired and wanted to change some of the eligibility criteria to, again, allow for this type of situation. And also, I would imagine you'd want to make ineligible the folks who received the grant award. And they did indicate that they'd be willing to do that. They'd be willing to do it for the remainder of the fee that they've went. I think you'd have to put it out there again, and you'd have to be prepared to score again in the event that we got more applications than the amount of awards that were allocated. And so that is probably the fairest way that staff could come up with to administer that situation.
Are there any comments from board members on what Tom has just described, or interest in having a second wave of grants to address the unused portion of the monies that we allocated? Lindsay?
I am incredibly interested in getting this money out to businesses and continuing that process. However, I have some significant reservations about what this looks like on the cost side of it to LEAP. Is this gonna, if we end up having more, then does it end up costing us $15,000 in the long run? I mean, I think these.
Lindsay, Tom just indicated that that LEAP had cut their fee in half.
I understand that, but that's
the initial round, and then, and if it was the completion of the remaining monies that are available, it would be the remaining portion that they have yielded back to us.
But then what he said was that if we had more than, we would look at a grading scenario. So then does it end up actually costing us more than the 10,000 in the, those are the kind of things that I am very concerned about with this money. And also when we're talking about the other things that are really important to us, I have a hard time making a decision on the second round right now, not knowing what things like Albert Ave, like trying to convert Albert or trying to add stuff at Valley Court or trying to do something at Bailey parking lot, what are those going to cost us? Because this is not the end of our spending and we can't spend all the money that we have.
Luke?
I agree to a degree with Lindsay, and then also just piggybacking off of that, I don't know how we can't look at what just happened as a failure across the board. You didn't even reach 100 people to apply, and then of the 75 people that did, there were another quarter that weren't eligible. I just feel like there must be more efficient, better ways to spend that money than just to try to keep doing the same thing that's not working. And again, I'll just reiterate all the same points I keep making. Talked to a number of people that didn't apply because they didn't think it was right to take money away from other businesses, or they didn't think it was worth their time for what they viewed as little money, or they didn't think, or they thought it was too obtrusive, the criteria. Again, those aren't my thoughts necessarily. Those are thoughts that were conveyed to me by a number now of businesses, including a few that were in the packets that I hope everybody actually read. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Go ahead, Lindsay.
I keep saying this, and I guess I'm going to keep bringing it up. I'd really like to know an exact number of businesses in our DDA district. This is a very concerning thing to me that I cannot get, and maybe it was in something and I didn't see it. But I really would like to know the specifics on how many actual businesses in our community we have in the DDA, outside of the DDA. I feel like this has got to be some like really easy layer that could be pulled from some kind of tax document, but maybe I'm just not understanding.
Unfortunately, it's a bit more complex than that. Without a formal business registry or license that every business would be required to apply for, that establishing a number and establishing a complete list of businesses is actually a very difficult endeavor. In the memo here, we kind of explain that we did cull through various records that we have in terms of at the disposal of staff. And, in terms of the universe, it's businesses that pay property taxes. So those entities, businesses that pay personal property taxes, the list of the DMB businesses, et cetera. So we have kind of a universe to pull from, but then there's certainly some businesses that may exist that are outside of that universe, like folks who don't pay taxes directly or pay through their lease, et cetera. It's not a simple endeavor, although it's one that we feel is important, and we've been working to try to cull as accurate a list of businesses as possible. The other aspect is really how you define a business. There's things like companies that have personal property, like business machines, that will exist in the district and need to pay personal property taxes, but may not really be considered a business depending on how you would define it. So again, in establishing this list, in order to kind of get to the list that we really want, or that is most useful for the DDA, we really need to answer some policy questions about how you define a business and what we're looking for in terms of establishing such a list.
What's your estimate, Tom?
We think it's probably around 250 to 300. Is that kind of our working number right now, Heather? Yeah.
Are there questions of what Thomas just provided? Go ahead, Lindsay.
I would really be interested in receiving this and continuing as we have updates to have a list of our businesses in the downtown. So that even just so that I can make sure to personally start reaching and establishing relationships with the other downtown businesses. I mean, I think for nothing, nothing more than just building the community garage, we should have that.
So certainly, and again, I think to the extent that you can help us understand the DDA's perspective on the policy questions in this memo and probably some others, that will help us to hone in on kind of the list that's most appropriate and useful for the DDA's purposes.
So could I just quickly, Chair, can I jump in?
Yeah,
so
go
I think
ahead.
that might be a good long-term project for us, but I don't think it's something that's going to help us over the coming couple of weeks here because we're not going to have a list at that time period. But it may be a business registration. Mr. Fehrenbach had mentioned to me that in Palo Alto, he worked on a business registration project, and it was I don't know if it was a year project to encourage businesses to register and do all of that. We've got to take the steps to identify what we consider a business, though, right? I mean, is a virtual business in the TIC, is that considered a downtown business if they just have a mailing address? I don't know, but those are all questions we should figure out, and maybe that is a project we should do. But for right now, it seems we have to get to the sort of instant question. So, are we looking for action on this final residual money? Because if it is, I'd be willing to make a motion to continue the program with the existing funds along the same parameters, except we give a chance to eliminate their debt by a certain date, and then let them all equally apply. If they applied before and they eliminate their debt, they can apply. If they haven't applied before, they can apply. And we have, 26 more spots or something like that we could fund, and see if people applied. I know Luke had concerns that people haven't applied because they have concerns about the program, but obviously 76 did apply. So obviously lots of people, we just heard from the caller from Sundance, that people appreciate the program and want to get the money as quickly as possible. So let's do another set of, we said we would give $250,000. Let's keep giving it out. Let's finish the program and do it one more time.
I'll second.
For discussion, I would like.
Oh, hold on a second. So we have the motion by George to have a second wave of the program. I think we do need to talk this through a little bit, and it's been supported by Jill, and I believe Lindsay.
Mayor. I think the mayor supported.
I'm sorry, Mayor Breyer, and I believe Lindsay wants to speak to that motion.
The gentleman, this is Lindsay Clayton. The gentleman from LEAP is on the call, correct?
Correct.
I would like confirmation on the continuing cost of this from LEAP, please.
Right.
Dylan, hi there, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So appreciate the question. We kind of talked it through about the logistics on our end, and we would be able to do another wave of the program for the remaining portion of the originally identified contract. I think, as we talk it through, there's probably, a couple things that can change for on our end in terms of the review process, who's involved, especially when we're not going to be expecting, a wave of another 100 applications or even more than that. So, but all in all, we're here to support, and we'd be willing to do this for the $5,000.
Great.
Thank you, Dylan. So we didn't vote on it. We just have a motion to have a second wave of this program. Are there further comments that people want, or questions that people want to ask, or do we have to redefine what our eligibility requirements are relative to perhaps people that were delinquent, or how is that being addressed? Tom?
Yes. So in order to do a second wave of the program, I think we would want to take a close look at the program eligibility criteria and make some changes in order to allow for the second iteration. So you'd need to, at a minimum, consider whether you want to have folks who have received this award previously still be eligible for a second wave. I think you'd want to address the issue of delinquencies and how you want to deal with those. Do you want to set a limit in terms of what you will fund, and then over that limit, if there's remaining balance, then that would go to the directly to the companies. And then I think you also need to put in place some scoring criteria, because we would have 43 grants left that would be available as part of your original allocation. And there's no guarantee that we would receive less than 43 if you change the program eligibility requirements. So I think you need to be prepared to deal with that potential reality.
George?
So could I just say that my motion would be to not have people be able to reapply until everyone gets a chance first. So you can't, if you've already gotten it, you can't get it again. We set a new eligibility date that you have to be cleared up in finances to the city by June 15th, some date in the future. And that we limit it to the amount of money we already allocated. So, and then just use the scoring criteria. If people exceed, if you get more applicants than we have grants, then we just have to go back to the scoring for this last group of them.
Thank you. Lindsay?
I'd like to have Dylan opine on that as well at some point during this conversation before.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
I really think that this, a second wave of this needs to be tabled until we have the estimated cost for the outdoor seating options that we are looking for in the downtown. I think we need to be a little bit more comprehensive with the way that we share this money. I'm personally not comfortable with spending another $5,000 when we don't have a real list of the people who, a very tangible list of who we think could be eligible to apply for this. So, and because we have identified other ways to spend money, I think that we should put this on hold.
Jill and then George.
Hang on.
I'd also, oh, go ahead.
Was that a motion, Lindsay?
Well, we're in discussion and we have a motion on the table.
You said table. Is your motion to table the discussion? Because that's not a debatable motion.
Fine. I would like to make a motion to table this discussion until we have some of these other things ironed out.
Okay, so
Luke,
been moved by Lindsay, supported by Luke to table the present conversation. Can we take a roll call vote on this?
I think we should open it for discussion.
You can't.
Okay.
You can't, it's a motion that can't be discussed, unfortunately.
Sorry, I forgot.
So Nicole or Chad, can you take a roll call vote, please?
Hang on, Peter. It can't be debated, but it can be withdrawn. Okay. Go ahead.
The table motion can be withdrawn. Is that what you suggested, Mayor?
Yes, but
Okay.
the mover is not interested. I thought.
Okay. So if we could take a roll call vote on the motion to table the present conversation. And I guess that would be Chad, right?
Thank you, Chair.
Clarify, so a yes vote tables it and pushes this away. A no vote continues the discussion.
That's correct. Yeah, yes would be to table the conversation. No would be to continue the conversation. Chad?
Okay, thank you, Chair. Ballline,
Yes.
Mayor Byer,
No.
Clayton,
Yes.
Kroom,
No.
Dewan,
No.
Hackney,
Yes.
Kruger,
Yes.
and Lahanas.
No.
Rhodey,
No.
and the motion fails 5-4.
Okay.
Again, just to point out, that's again where only the non-business owners have an interest in that. I guess that just needs to be pointed out because that happens every
Yeah,
time.
I would just point out two quick things to Lindsay's question. We didn't get to debate it before. We said we're concerned about spending $10,000 and $50,000 and $250. We already allocated this money. So 2 weeks ago, we said we would spend $250 plus $10,000. We haven't gotten all that money out and haven't spent all that money. So I'm not sure why we'd be concerned about spending it now, 2 weeks later, after we see that certain groups have been made ineligible to it.
I
The
mean,
other thing
in
is,
my defense,
we
I've
do have an extra we do have an extra portion of money that's available. I think we had, Tom, do you want to mention, is there a money like $250,000 or $60,000 that wasn't allocated here from the project fund that can and should be held, to Lindsay's point, for downtown outdoor dining, support, table cleaning, marketing, whatever else we want to do. So there is additional money for that. That would not be included here because we already said we weren't going to spend all of our project development. Is that right, Mr. Fehrenbach?
That is correct. So currently, you have allocated $147,500 of the remaining fund balance for the project development fund, which is $323,980. So there's currently $176,480 available for the DDA's disposal. And I believe my math is correct here. Hold on one second.
I think we'll have $60,000 left, something like that, if we spend all the money.
Yeah, I think that's about right. We can get that exact number, but yeah, that's in the ballpark.
So I'd just like to add, so you have $60,000, $70,000 left. We all know at this little virtual table that we have how much it costs to buy a picnic table for a commercial, for a municipal or commercial situation. So I mean, we can act like, oh, you know, it's $60,000 or $70,000. That $60,000 or $70,000 is going to go away like that. So
in the interest of moving this along quickly, we actually are going to use city tables that are already existing. So we're going to repurpose tables from the parks, and we're going to pull those large tables over that can't be moved easy, but we can move them because we have like the forklifts and the people to do it. So we'll plop those tables into the downtown so that the DDA, if we have to buy tables, we're not slowed down for 10 weeks waiting for tables to come, which will kill this project anyway. So we were going to use repurposed tables from the parks.
that was discussed at public policy. And there was also discussed at public policy about, you know, who buys additional tables when we need them. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that we don't give this money out at some point. I am personally saying that I don't want to give this money out until we have decided that this other thing that we've come up with is completely feasible financially.
Jill, you had a comment?
I also want to see a costing of keeping the parking open until September 15th or something like that. What would that cost? I mean, there's another probably excellent use of our money going hand in hand with this outdoor seating thing.
Mm-hmm.
We can't.
And, you know, I don't think we've heard any idea what that would be.
Then why would you vote on something if you want to know more information about other things?
No. I voted to keep talking, not to, that may not have been how I would have voted on the issue. I voted to continue the discussion.
Just to close the loop, and Heather, you probably did this math too. I have 63,980 if you allocate, yeah. So you were right on, George.
Okay.
Go ahead, Jim. Jim Croom.
Thank you, Peter. All good comments. The businesses I've heard from are in favor of allocating all of this money now. We've already approved the amount of money. We have the reserve to cover this new issue that's come up about the desire to have outdoor seating. I'm personally, this is an urgent situation, and I think that any delays are only going to negatively impact the businesses. We potentially don't have a perfect process. I'll acknowledge Luke's concern and concerns of others who think or believe that we could have done this differently. I don't know that I disagree, but our best hope, since we don't have a list now, is to do a broad scale notice campaign, which I feel the city staff did. They made every effort they could in a short amount of time to get people on board. There may be people that decided, as someone has pointed out, gee, we don't need the money, we're not going to apply, let it go to others. There may be other reasons, but all we can do at this point is, for Tom Fehrenbach's suggestion, is have staff generate a new eligibility proposal and bring it back to us. We can kick that around and try and get this money out the door. That may look like what Tom described. It may also be the case that we don't need to have the initial businesses who applied and were successful reapply. It may be that new business who apply and are eligible and qualified would receive their $2,500 now. And then in advance, we can say, plus if there's another residual situation, that would be distributed pro rata to round one eligible folks and round two eligible folks who've received the 2,500. And then we would be done with the process on an expedited basis.
Are there additional comments? No, I'm of the opinion, and I respect all
Peter.
other. Yes, is that
Michael?
Do I need to recuse myself again from more of this conversation?
If you already applied, would you still need to?
I did, but Jim is, making, well, he's not making a motion, but there's discussion about reallocating the rest of the leftover funds to businesses who may have already applied and received the grants. And so I just want to make sure that I'm not putting the DDA or myself in any kind of legal jeopardy.
Mr. Yaden, can you speak to that issue?
Are you, would you intend to apply for a second grant if that was available? If so, you should recuse yourself.
If there was a second grant available to businesses that had already received the grant, then yes, I would most certainly reapply. But
yes,
that doesn't seem to be where it's going, but that doesn't mean, okay.
Yeah, I think to be safe, you should need to recuse yourself.
So I make a motion for Mike to recuse himself.
I'll support.
Motion has been offered to recuse Michael. It's been supported. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, Michael's been recused.
A point of order. Do we have a pending motion or not?
We do for Mr. Lahanas.
We do.
Can you go over it again, George, what you're proposing?
Yeah, so that we use the remaining money from the 250,000 plus the 10,000 to LEAP to complete our allocation to businesses, to allow businesses that haven't received a grant in the prior process to set a new date that businesses can resolve any outstanding debts to the city, and then apply, and then be granted the $2,500. So essentially the exact same process, a second round. If you've applied already, you can't apply again. I mean, if you've received the funds, you can't apply. And that if you have a chance, a certain set date in which to wipe out any debt obligations to the city.
Okay, and you understand at this point, if they owe their taxes, they'll need to pay the county. That would have to be clear to them. Because they've been turned over delinquent at this point.
Yeah, so I guess we could add to clarify that delinquent taxes, if it's been turned over to the county, it's still considered delinquent to the city. Is that the case, Mr. Yaden? If we've turned over taxes and they're delinquent to us and we turn it over to the county, is that considered delinquent to us?
Yes, they still are delinquent to us.
Okay.
So George, your motion does not deal with any residual that might remain after the second round?
No, just that the original 250,000 plus the 10,000 administration is what we would complete at this point, and then we would save that extra 60,000 for downtown, for parking, for whatever else comes up.
But if we didn't, if it wasn't fully subscribed in the second round, and let's say only 10 businesses qualify, then that's another 25 out the door, and we still have leftover. you would not
Yep.
distribute that in this motion? We would deal with it at that time?
Correct. Just if it's left over, it's left over, and we deal with it after this round.
Okay.
So we have the motion that's been provided by George. It's been supported by the mayor. We have a couple people that wish to speak, Lindsay and then Luke.
Under this motion, Michael can come back. I'd like to make a motion to bring it back to the table.
Go ahead, Luke.
I'll support that just to keep that going. It sounds like under that motion that he wouldn't be eligible to apply for another one. So if he wants to speak on this, I feel like he should be allowed to.
Okay. We understand what the motion is that this is not eligible for anyone that's already been an applicant. So, and on that basis for this motion, it's been
Peter?
moved. Yes.
Since this is a point of contention of whether the other applicants should still be allowed to, get the money, and that's been an issue that's been raised, I would recommend that he not come back for this discussion.
Okay.
Because he could vote against it simply because it precludes his from getting the next benefit. So
yep.
I would recommend he not come back.
I'll rescind my support.
Okay. So Luke has rescinded his support for that motion. We have the main motion, which has been described by George, supported by the mayor. Is there any further discussion before we vote on this? Luke?
Just, I don't know if any of the staff can speak to this, but just because Ms. Rhodey brought up parking, so we have 62,000 left. I mean, is there any sort of ballpark on how much parking costs in a given week or month or quarter? Because I would guess it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And how are
I
you
think your
funding
estimate
the
is in the
fact that they've
ballpark.
been open all year? And how's that being funded?
I don't think it is.
Yeah, that's my point. They go hand in hand.
Well, that just means the city's funding it.
Right.
And that's what I would support. The DDA can't
So
continue with our budget. We would not be able to put a dent in.
exactly. That was more my point, was that I think that's a moot point for us.
Okay, so we will, go ahead, Lindsay.
Back to the current motion. There was this implication that we're like keeping this money from getting out to people, but look at the applicants. We had fewer applicants than we have for the money here. So I feel I am going to vote no, because I think there are other things we need to be focusing some energy on, and I'm not comfortable spending another $5,000 having someone administrate something that I think we could have done in-house. So I am not going to be voting to continue this right now, but that doesn't mean that at some point down the road I wouldn't. But everyone that was interested so far, that out of the business community that we still can't get a firmer number on, has applied. So we haven't held up the money. We just passed a motion that allowed that first batch of money to go out to all the people that applied. So no, I will not be supporting this motion, because we have other things that we need to do. And we had the applicants, they chose to apply. If later on people want to apply who are delinquent or whatnot, we can do that. And then we can spend another $5,000 having LEAP administer this. But I'm not going to support this right now. I don't think it's good timing at all.
Thank you. Any other comments? So
yes,
we will.
Greg Ballline.
Yeah, go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, what if people were to use this grant money to pay those taxes? Would that be an acceptable use or not?
I think Tom Yaden can weigh in on that question.
That's up to your protocols on any restrictions on the use of the money. So arguably you could have a grant program that allows the applicant to be indebted to the city up to a certain amount of money, and then that money either is withheld and given directly to the city or the county, whichever, to get rid of the deficiency, and then they get the remainder, or you could require that they, through the agreement that they sign, that they use the money first to pay any outstanding deficiencies.
I think that's correct, Tom. And under the current motion, they wouldn't be able to use the money. So that's the current motion we have.
Yeah,
Yeah, because you have to be out of debt before applying. So.
Okay, any additional questions or comments about the motion before us?
I'm conflicted on whether to vote no or not, because I would prefer to have all the money go out and then to be to have the prior applicants be able to be able to get the additional pro rata amount of money that remains available. But by the same token, I don't want to hold up the immediate help to businesses. So I'm a little conflicted. I guess I'll have to vote yes under those circumstances reluctantly.
I was going to offer my comments, and Luke, I know you want to add a comment. We don't have control over who makes an application or not. They do that on their own prerogative. If we get to a second round of support to the business community and we still have remaining monies, those monies will be made available to support additional ways in which we can support the business community. So to me, it's not ambiguous. If people, we want it to be impactful, we want it to be expedient, we want it to have a fair distribution process based upon some criteria. We can't really just take the entire sum of money and give it back proportionately to the 170 or 200 plus some businesses that are in the DDA, because not every business is paying the same proportionate share with regard to how the millage is calculated. So in my mind, this seems to be an appropriate approach. We've already committed 2 weeks ago to expend $250,000 to support businesses, and to suspend that 2 weeks later, to me, is not speaking to supporting the business community. So I will be supporting it and voting yes. Luke, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, I guess I just had a couple more questions. I guess real quick, just to your point, I understand what you're saying, but at least I did not commit to that 2 weeks ago, so this isn't any different to me personally. But I did have a couple questions. One, how would we get this out to the businesses in a better way than we did the last time, or a different way? Because what we did the first time arguably didn't work. And I guess my second question is, I saw that, I guess I just want to know what some of the rationale behind advertising that we were issuing this grant was. I know that somebody paid for Facebook sponsored ads. I'm sure it was a almost nominal amount of money, but I am still curious how much money that was and who paid for that, and what the rationale behind just sending out a blanket Facebook ad to people was.
So I can speak to that. So, so as far as we posted, on the city's website, we did email blasts, we put out, I think, 4 different press releases. Our communications team was pushing it out on Facebook. And so when the day before the deadline was, reminding people to apply, they boosted that post. And so that's where you saw that you had questioned the advertising. And that just comes out of the communications budget. That has nothing to do with us, with the DDA. So, but I am more than happy to look at other options for getting, the information out to the businesses. We could do a mailing to all the businesses that pay that. My concern with that is that if their business is closed and maybe they're working from home, maybe they're not coming in often and checking their actual mailbox, where if they're receiving the emails from them, we have their email address, they're responding to that. But, staff is open to other suggestions. If you think if there's other ways we can do it, we definitely will make, any attempt we can to get the information to the businesses.
Thank you. I think Lindsay and then George.
I would just be more interested, if we're looking at a second wave of this, I would be I would be interested in doing something that would divide up things evenly and not pay $5,000 out the door. And that's something that was just, in my mind, a bit more equitable. I completely understand if someone is delinquent, they're not allowed to receive that money, and then the pot gets bigger. But I have struggled with this from day one, and I will continue to struggle with this because I don't think that it is fair to be paying outside people money, or to be paying money out of communications budget, or just paying money in general, when we could just have a list of our businesses and send it out to the people that are brick and mortar businesses. So until we can find a solution that's more equitable, I'm not comfortable spending $10,000 of our money from our project and infrastructure to have someone administer something that I really don't think is that complex.
George?
He's muted.
George?
I'm not understanding why we're saying the communication was ineffective. I mean, I think that obviously we had a large number of grant people apply. So we're saying that staff didn't do a good job of communicating this. And we sent out in all the communication channels that we have.
I didn't suggest a good job. I just was asking if there were different ways we could do it.
Okay.
You can always approve on anything.
Yep.
Jill?
Heather and Tom, do you think that the application period was too short? I mean, is that why people didn't, do we think that there was some kind of problem with the whole thing, or any recommendations we should have done different, or?
I think I'd ask Dylan to opine as the, since they have a lot of experience, but I would also point out that we didn't use any scientific methodology to pick the number 100 in terms of the grant award. So, in terms of coming to what that perfect number would be, I think the intention of the motion was to get it out quickly, and so that's I think what we accomplished. But I'd be happy to hear from Dylan on that too.
Yeah, I can speak to the application window. It was 3 full business days, and then probably about 8 hours or so after 5 on Thursday. And I want to say close to maybe even 90% or so of the applications came in before noon on Thursday, which kind of is a testament to the marketing and the communications, that everybody was aware of it up front and actually we hit the wave on Tuesday when it opened up, getting about half the applications in the first few hours. So it did heavily slow down. But to Tom's point there about the number of applications, it's really an impossible question to answer. The whole world is in chaos right now. Their communication methods are in chaos, and perhaps maybe the eligibility, the grant amount, the requirements, they didn't hit the nail on the head, perhaps. That's also impossible to know. But I don't want you guys to forget that 57 businesses which I'm communicating with them right now, are extraordinarily happy, and then the messages that they're delivering to us are just absolutely phenomenal. So that's something important to carry in the near term, and as you think about going for the second wave and maybe even a more different approach in the fall or so.
Dylan, I have a question. Do you know how many applicants were not in the DDA district, or maybe even
there were
East Lansing?
There was one that was not in East Lansing. Funny enough, it was 7, I believe, 76 down to 69. There might have been a duplicate in there, and then 57 after the delinquent.
Okay, thank you.
Ones. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Dylan. Are there any additional questions or statements, comments before we vote on the motion that's been supported?
Yes, Greg Ballline again.
Go ahead, Greg.
So if I'm not mistaken, there will be an opportunity for the businesses that applied with the first round but were denied because of tax delinquency. There will be an opportunity for them to rectify their situation before a certain date. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that date would be?
I mentioned June 15th, but I'm open. I mean, I just picked a date that's a month away. I don't know if that's too long or not long enough, but maybe staff can give me a thought on that. That was the date I said. I'm not tied to it. If it doesn't make sense, maybe
Heather?
it's June 1st.
Yeah. So are you saying if we launch the second wave, if the board approves it, I guess it will be state that they need to become non-delinquent would be, you'd want that prior to the application
The closing.
close or before they submit, because the way the application is set up is if you get to the question, are you delinquent on any, are you delinquent to the city, water, whatever it may be, and you click yes, you can't go any further because you're ineligible because you have to, that was, one of the eligibility requirements. Now, so if you want to say they can still apply and by the time that they're awarded, they're non-delinquent, then we would have to change that question. But for the date, it really depends on if the DDA approves this today, wants staff to come back at our special meeting next week and approve the final language for the criteria, and then we can lay out, the timeline from there.
Jill?
George, I'd like to amend your proposal to that they'd have to be paid off by June 1st with applications due by June 5th.
That sounds like a friendly amendment to me. Great.
So we are allowing tax delinquencies. I thought we were talking about not doing.
No, you can't be delinquent. You'd have to pay it all up.
Right.
No, but I thought we were not. I thought originally it was just for like minor delinquencies, but we weren't even going to include tax delinquents at all. I thought that's
No, my proposal was all delinquencies because there's a range of delinquencies, right, Tom, of what people are delinquent on?
Correct.
But I thought Jill was concerned about allowing people who had been tax delinquent specifically.
It's not my, I do have issues with it, but I'm willing to accept this proposal of giving them till June 1st to be made whole.
So
Greg Ballline again.
Some aren't going to be able to, and some aren't going to be able to. I mean, that's clear.
If I could just speak to kind of what I was referring to is that, if people had the money, they probably would have paid their taxes. And by giving them the money, if we can help to satisfy some of their debt, I think we're doing the right thing. That's my personal belief.
So Greg, are you offering that as a motion?
I am not. I just feel like it is the proper course of action. Should we go down this path of allowing people that have already submitted applications access to those funds, if they could be used to help satisfy their delinquencies, I think we should allow it.
What you're saying is if they're owed $2,500 and they're due $2,000, we would pay off the $2,000 and then pay them $500. That's what you're thinking, something like that?
I'm not pretending to know. I just know that they didn't have the money to pay it before. They're probably not going to have the money to make it whole now. And if you're proposing that they pay off those debts before they receive the funds, it probably will be ineffective.
I don't know. There were some who had rather trivial amounts. Weren't there some that had $100, hundreds of dollars? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't have the answer for that either. I just know that I thought that it was being tax delinquent. I didn't realize it was for fees and licensing and things like that.
Didn't we have a comment at the last meeting, or maybe I'm just thinking of it now, that any such delinquency would have preceded the COVID crisis? And that was one of the reasons why we put that requirement in.
That is correct.
Okay.
As unfortunate as it is, Greg, yeah.
So we have a friendly amendment that's been offered by Jill to the main motion. Do we need to vote on that?
No, the moving party and the supporting party have to just accept it, I believe.
Yeah,
Okay.
so I accept it if Ruth accepts it, I'm fine.
Okay, very good, thank you. All right, so we have a motion that's been friendly amended. Is there additional conversation?
Just a point of clarification, if I may.
Yes, Tom.
Is the intention here to direct staff to augment the eligibility criteria based on the substance of this motion? Or would you prefer that we return to the DDA with these items drafted for your approval?
I would want to just recommend that you do it along the lines we said and not bring this back yet again, but
And that's what
I'm okay with that.
that's what I was
'Cause that-
second. Sorry, my second was assuming that it would be implemented after we voted on it.
Because we're trying to get this money quickly and we just keep talking about it. Let's just do it.
Tom, are you suggesting you need further clarification from what has been discussed in order to address that item, or what?
I don't think we do. I'd want to make sure that Dylan and Heather are also comfortable and have a full knowledge of what's expected in terms of the changes to the eligibility criteria.
This is Dylan.
Go ahead,
I
Dylan.
think we can work with that again. I might offer some changes to, for example, the number of reviewers. Maybe drop that down to 6 instead of 8. So little things like that I think staff and ourselves can work out. But in terms of the eligibility, I think we can handle it.
So I just want to be clear with the board that, there may be some minor items that we would need to adjust and we want to make sure that you're comfortable delegating that to staff in terms of these changes as part of this motion.
I guess I'm still just kind of confused about what the changes that will be made specifically.
Heather, and then George, if you could respond to the motion. Heather, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna state, if we could just, item 3 is business must not be delinquent on any accounts, fees, assessment, real estate, personal property taxes, water bills, license fees prior to, you're saying June 1st? With the
By June
application date
1st.
being 5th, so they'd have to be, and the applications due. Okay, and again, would we want these fees though to be again associated with fees prior to COVID-19? Correct?
No, you're not delinquent to the city by June 1st
Okay,
is what I was recommending. And they can pay water bill, whatever it is, business license fee, they just pay it off. Then they apply by June 5th application date was what Jill recommended.
and whether it's $15 or $5,000, you're delinquent. Okay,
And George, so the language is clear. It should be as of June 1st.
As of June 1st.
as of June 1st? Okay,
Including property taxes turned over to the Ingham County Treasurer's Office. I'd add that right in there.
okay,
Because they were turned over on March 1st.
yes.
Okay, is there any additional discussion or comments? Seeing none, let's go ahead and have a roll call vote.
Peter?
Yeah, I think that Lindsay must have got dropped out or restarting her computer or something.
Yeah, if I may though, Peter, I do
Yeah,
have
go ahead.
one more comment.
Go ahead,
So
Chris.
if I'm not mistaken, are we giving any sort of priority to the previous applicants? Or are we saying just reapply?
The original motion is that if you've already been a recipient, you're not eligible.
No, what I'm saying is that we told people, a number of applicants, that they weren't eligible because they owed the city, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Are those people, are we really if, let's assume that all of them make good on their debts before June 1st, do they have to go through a reapplication process, or are those monies already set aside for them?
I wouldn't think that they would have to reapply. They've already submitted their application. The question is whether or not they are in compliance with their obligation or delinquency.
So in
My
theory,
understanding, my understanding is different, Peter. This is a new application. It's a second wave, but it's a new program, and therefore they would need to reapply. However, there might be some techniques that Mr. Rush could help them with to simplify that process. It's not a real onerous application process. The hardest part is answering the questions, which they've already done. So they would just need to repopulate those answers.
and I'm okay with. Go ahead, George.
My thought is saying that it was going to be that anyone could reapply was to the point raised. It was a good point that people did not know you could wipe out your debt. So now, to be fair, you should let everybody who, because there may be some people who thought, I'm not going to apply because I am in arrears to the city. I'm not going to apply. Now those people can still apply. And that's the competition now. They're competing against the people who applied and were rejected and who didn't apply. And let them all try. You're just giving them a new chance with a new deadline with the remaining money. That's the way I understood it.
And just to be crystal clear, the only folks who are not eligible are those that have already received the $2,500 in your last month. Yes.
Correct.
Yep. Yeah, this is Dylan. It's important to remember that there still may be 44 applications and we can only give 43 grants. So with that knowledge that even people who submitted this last wave would need to start all over. Now that we can get copies of their responses and help them out with that. But they're going to be scored on what's submitted in this new application. That's just how it's got to be.
Well, as George indicated, the number that were rejected is few, and it wouldn't seem to be hard to work with those, as you've indicated, Dylan, those respective businesses to look at their applications moving forward for a second round.
Correct. They would still have to go through the process. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Hang on.
And George?
Mayor Breyer?
Yep.
To answer Mr. Balline's question specifically, though, I don't think the intention is to give those people first crack at the remaining funds. They would be in the same pool as everybody else. Is that right, George?
That's my thought, is just giving them a new shot, because there's money left over. They get a new shot to compete against everybody else, and the people who didn't apply can compete. But these people, maybe they'll still only be 20 applications and we have 25 grants and everyone gets one. Would be great.
And George, can I clarify one more thing with you, please? It's Tom Yaden.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Tom.
You wanted to give them to the end of the business day on Monday to get payments made, right? Or did you want it to be?
How would you typically do it when you say as of that date, they're not in, they don't have any outstanding obligations to the city? Would you do it by the end of that business day?
That's what I wanted to clarify with you.
Okay.
Did you want it to be at the end of that business day? Because then you should that should be part of it as directed to staff. So it says at the end of the business day or
on June 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm good with that because Jill's the one who said that. I think that's a good clarification. Makes it clearer.
Okay.
If Jill's good with that.
Jill, are you accepting?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are we saying, you say end of the business day, are we saying a time, are we saying 5 p.m.? Like a cutoff, like we do with the application, 11:59 p.m.? Are we saying June 1st, 5 p.m.?
Yep.
Okay, is there any other clarification that needs to be made? Everyone knows what we're doing, what we're voting on? Okay, Chad, will you call the roll call, please? A vote yes would be to support the motion that's been offered by Mr. Lahanas and supported by the mayor and friendly amended by Jill.
Thank you, Chair. Ballline,
Yes.
Mayor Byer,
Yes.
Clayton,
No.
Croom,
Yes.
Dewan,
Yes.
Hackney,
No.
Lahanas,
Yes.
Rhodey,
Yes.
and that passes 6-2.
Okay, thank you. Um,
I make a motion.
Oh,
We let
Mike
Michael
Kruger's got
back
to come
in.
back into the, yeah. I second the motion.
Well, it's been moved by Jill, supported by George to bring Michael back into the meeting. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Welcome back, Michael.
Thank you.
So if staff, are we now addressing business agenda item 6.3 regarding additional support programs, or are we moving on from there?
That's at the board's pleasure.
I think
Okay,
we beat this one to
Yeah.
death.
I think
Well,
we've
we-
covered 6.4 also, so
I agree.
I think we're moving on to 6.5.
I'm with that.
okay. We have had a considerable amount of conversation that weaves over 6.3 and 6.4. So seeing no objection, we will move on to item 6.5 on our agenda. It's a consideration of a resolution to create the Evergreen Properties Project Team. And Heather, are you going to speak to that resolution, or Tom?
I'll speak to it, please. So as you know, the DDA entered into a memorandum of understanding with River Caddis Development in April. That MOU anticipates the project team be established and comprised of various stakeholders to monitor the progress on plans, documents, and funding sources for the project. The DDA has previously passed a resolution that created a review committee and gave them a charge. And that review committee became unnecessary subsequently because of action of the DDA, essentially to enter into this MOU. This resolution in front of you essentially replaces the review committee with the project team and envisions similar, if not identical, makeup of that committee. I think that the intention here is to have the chair establish that committee, probably early summer timeframe, once the developer has had a chance to kind of react to some of the initial feedback that they've been going around it and getting from various stakeholders. So that would be the intent of this resolution, and it's in front of you for consideration.
Are there any comments about the resolution?
Yeah, Peter, how would the how would the selection process take place for this committee? I don't have the agenda in front of me.
So, the goal was to have a sampling of viewpoints from key stakeholders from the community. And so in the past, it included a list of probably about 10, 12 people, several of which participated in conversations about Evergreen. So it could be adjacent property owners, it could be the business community, it could be MSU. We had a list of a variety of different people. If there are any individuals that are interested in participating, we could certainly take a look at additional individuals to serve on that committee. But it was a matter of making certain that we had a representative sample of key stakeholders in the community.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, or is there a board member willing to take action on the resolution?
I mean, I would personally rather, I mean, not to discredit your judgment in any way, Peter, but I'd still be interested in maybe discussing it further, if not here, then some other, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I would rather have more than just one person pick this board if possible, just so we all have a better understanding who's on it.
Well, it's certainly subject to the discretion of the DDA. So we have put together a list of individuals that can serve. And like I say, I'm certainly welcome to everyone's opinion and ideas on what constitutes a representative sample of our community and the impact that the development of these projects will have on our community. So yes, Jill?
Are you thinking something similar to who put the RFP together? It was before my time, but
well,
same kind of
so
makeup that did that.
the list before had a representative from the Oakwood neighborhood. It had a representative from People's Church, a representative from Michigan State University, a representative from the Downtown Management Board, from the DDA, from the real estate community, a downtown resident. I may be missing other key stakeholders, but that's what off the top of my head, I know that we had a fairly broad representation of individuals.
That was on the RFP, the group that wrote the RFP. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the party that, or the body that put together the RFP, some of those people are no longer able to participate. And they've moved on and are serving in different capacities. So, and in order to try and advance forward with this representative body, we've invited some additional people to consider participating. It also had representatives from the Planning Commission and other city boards. So I'm open to what is the pleasure of the board with regard to this resolution.
Peter, with this is Jim.
Yes, Jim, go ahead.
With your representation and examples of the types of folks that you're putting on and the offer to hear from board members on their input, and if they in fact want to serve, I guess I'm personally comfortable allowing the chair to appoint.
Okay.
Would you like to make that a motion then, Jim?
Do we already have a motion?
We don't.
We don't have a motion.
Oh, I will make that motion, yes.
Okay, and then I saw Michael's hand raised, and then I believe Lindsay. Michael?
Can we see if we have a second before we
I'll support just for the sake of continuing conversation.
Okay. Sorry, we have a motion.
Just,
what about Luke and now Michael?
I just wanted to make it clear that this team has not been picked already. It's just that you have a list of people that you're considering speaking with, but you're also looking for volunteers from this board and or other boards or commissions to possibly throw their name in.
There was.
I just want to understand correctly.
Yeah, let me just provide clarification. There was a group that was assembled initially when the RFP went out for responses, and that body's role was to evaluate and make recommendations based upon the matrix and the criteria that was established for the full DDA's consideration. And it was just to make certain that they had that input. That collection of individuals has changed because people have moved on to other positions, but nonetheless, we reassembled a team representing simply the same type of interest: real estate, downtown businesses, downtown resident, People's Church. And so that group was in place when we only had the one response to the RFP. The role has changed as far as serving as still entertaining their input, their opinion, and sharing it with the process. So that's kind of, so there are some individuals' names, but the committee is at the present time not functioning because, we're in this due diligence phase. Jill?
Sure.
I'm
So if
sorry,
I were to want to,
oh,
sorry, nope, just
Go ahead.
wanted to be clear that if I wanted to, I just wanted to know if I was to volunteer for that specific committee or for this team. I would be happy to do that now verbally, or if that's something I need to put in writing, that would be fine as well. I'm not quite sure what the criteria for being a part of it is completely, but I think that I can make a case. So that's all.
No, that's great. And like I say, I'm not a mind reader, so I don't know if people have an interest in serving or not. So if you do, please let me know.
Sure.
I think Lindsay had a comment, and then I believe Jill.
Wouldn't this fall under project and infrastructure? I'm just, as someone who's kind of sat on lots of these different things, especially for this project, I remember the charrettes with DTN. So how far back I'm dating myself. Just worry about spending a lot of time when we could do something that was a little bit more efficient, or it was already in the structure that we have. I don't know. I personally am not interested in sitting on this because we keep doing it for this property, and then every 2 years the council makes a new decision on it. And that's why we're now paying a boatload of money in debt on something that should have been unloaded from the very beginning. But I'm just really concerned why we're adding another layer. Maybe someone else can explain it, and I'm just not grasping it.
So this project team was envisioned as part of the memorandum of understanding that the DDA agreed to on April 24th. And I think it's a little bit different because its charge is to be comprised of various stakeholders and to monitor the progress on plans, documents, and funding sources for the project, and to work with the developer directly. So it could in fact be the project and development committee. But I think that the vision, at least from my conversations with the developer, was really to get kind of the on the ground feedback from a broader group of stakeholders. And so I think that was the intent of that being established in the MOU.
I'm a little confused. Don't we always do that? I mean, I've never sat on something where we didn't have People's Church and the resident, everyone within a certain area. I mean, we always have people involved. I am very concerned about saying something like that, like we somehow haven't taken stakeholder input in the past, which is completely incorrect.
Sorry if I misspoke there. We always encourage stakeholder feedback, and in fact, even in this case, we've encouraged the developer to reach out to a broad group of stakeholders. I think this was more kind of an idea to formalize a group of stakeholders into a group that would ultimately be able to give feedback to the developer and ultimately to the DDA as well.
I know we have some others that wish to speak. Mayor Byer, and then I believe Jill.
Ms. Clayton said something that explains a lot to me. I really couldn't understand all the conflict over the last proposal, but you mentioned that we could have unloaded this earlier. So I think there might be a disconnect between council and DDA. Council sees this as a vital part of developing the downtown, not something that we just want to unload. So I don't think it's fair to say that we could have gotten what we wanted earlier. We've tried to get what we wanted many times and have not successfully done that. So just maybe that gives you a better idea of why we like this kind of a project, or at least I personally, as a council person, like this kind of a project. And in terms of creating a group to work with the developer during the development of it, actually proposing the project and what it's going to do and how much it's going to cost the city, if anything, I think it's a good idea to have as many stakeholders as possible participating without making it completely unwieldy.
Jill?
I understood having a committee that was going to look at the proposals and help us pick one. That I understood. I guess I'm still having trouble understanding what the outcome of this, what are they going to provide? They're going to provide pros and cons. They're going to provide overall concerns. I guess somebody's got to explain to me how this thing would operate.
I guess my view of this, Jill, is that why would we want to embark on a project where we're not inviting opinions from people that have a clear outcome or a stake in what is ultimately developed? And so I think in any successful development project, you have the variety of opinion that's received, which can help shape that project to maybe meet the needs of the community more favorably and more successfully. And at the end of the day, you have a successful project. So I'm all about encouraging communication as opposed to eliminating it.
Peter, Greg Paula.
Yeah, Greg.
Thank you. Would it be better if we just set this up as some sort of work session with the full DDA and stakeholders and the developer to just sit down and kind of expedite the process, give an open forum for people to express their concerns, what they'd like to see, and just kind of cut to the chase with this? I also know that the due diligence as a developer, that tends to drag on, and there's delays that are associated with it that are sometimes out of the developer's hands. Deadlines don't get met, and I really don't want to see this become a full year process. Would it be better to just have some sort of work session, full DDA, stakeholder members, developer, that we can make this into a 2 or 3 meeting process?
Greg, I'll let staff follow up and respond to that, but Lindsay, you had an opinion you want to offer as well?
Yeah, I think it's really insensitive to sit here and act like we don't have, the DDA doesn't care what happens here. We just want to unload it. We have been talking about this for, I mean, how long have we owned this? 15 years? We never expected that we would be having to pay this ridiculous amount of interest. And I'm sorry if unloading it is insensitive, because we're going to be paying a ridiculous amount of money, and the city is going to be paying a fortune to pay for the fact that we keep pushing this off because we want to have charrettes and we want to have all this. We've had so much. I have never seen a property that has had so much stakeholder input in my entire life. I am not saying that stakeholder input isn't valid. It's incredibly essential. That's why it's part of the site plan process. That's why it's a part of every single thing requires us to have public hearings, which is something that is vital to the way that we operate. And that's why I fought for it when it had to do with our budget. I wanted people at public hearings, but I am not personally interested in continuing to have a million different subcommittees and delay this process again and again and again. But you know what's going to happen? By the time this goes to vote, we're going to have a whole new council that's going to tell us they didn't even like this in the first place. The problem, and this is why our city is in a serious financial position with this property, and it's all on our back. And I am just infuriated by the fact that people act like we don't care or we are trying to be insensitive because we are looking at the dollars and the cents of this budget.
Thank you.
Could I just jump in quick?
Go ahead, Drew.
I kind of see this as trying to eliminate roadblocks. If you have all the people at the table at the same time, staff, planning staff, economic development staff for incentive talk or planning, engineering, if you have People's Church, if you have someone from the university, if you have, people from nearby property interests, as things come up about, well, what if we don't have the right drive approach to help the People's Church? Or, every time you could have someone right there and you could talk about stuff. And as things keep coming up, you can keep talking about it and have that discussion happen. And if it all happens in public and it's all transparent, I think it's great. I think this facilitates having everyone at the table to discuss it and not just wait and say, well, let's just check back in. Now there's been 10 changes. Let's go back and check in with People's Church again. if they're at the table for the discussion the whole time, then there's none of that, there's none of this stopping and saying, now let's go see, this has changed, let's go back and check again. Just have everyone at the table, move it along, and by the time when you get to the end, all the stakeholders were there all along. I don't know, Tom, do you have anything to add to clarify that better? I mean, that's kind of the way I envisioned it.
No, I think you said it succinctly. One thing that maybe Tom Yaden can correct me if I'm wrong, but in terms of Mr. Balline's suggestions, I don't think that passing this resolution precludes having a joint meeting or having further kind of dialogue about the nature and number of meetings that would occur.
It does not.
Okay.
I guess my main concern was time frame. We haven't laid out a calendar of events. I know that there'll be a calendar of events once we accept the RFP that will be on the onus of the developer to complete them. Some of those may not be within their purview. They may be dependent on other people doing work. And I just don't want to see the process delayed.
And Greg, help me understand how you see the process being delayed if we invite commentary from stakeholders.
No, I think we should invite it, but I think that we should probably just do it as part of our DDA meeting. I guess that's the point.
Exactly.
Well, this body will be subject to the Open Meetings Act. Is that correct, Tom?
That's correct.
I don't see that as being a problem.
Okay.
And again, there's nothing that precludes you from having a joint session or having all of the sessions be joint sessions with this group. It's just we need to know that there's a quorum present so that we can be upfront about that in terms of noticing it.
Lindsay?
I would prefer to have these people as part of our DDA meeting. Every single time we have a separate meeting, it has to be noticed. You have to have a certain time period. You have a ton of extra things that have to happen, and then spacing between our meetings and council meetings. I honestly think that if you want this to be as efficient as possible, then you need to have it at our DDA meetings, and you can have people come in to sit at the table and be part of a discussion. Obviously we will have the final vote on it as the DDA, but there's no problem with having advisory people. I have a problem with having a completely additional layer of people that we have to be scheduling around and having extra meetings. It's going to take longer, a lot longer, unless it's part of the DDA.
Jim, you had a comment? Jim Kroom?
Yeah, I'm torn. I agree with Greg. I don't want any delays. My concern is that we run to the end of the exclusive period and receive something back that is completely out of line from what we expect. That would cause a major delay. I think we've been clear that we're not interested in residential in this area, and that we like the initial plan, and that we've been around the track before with developers changing the program midstream. So that's the struggle here. Is it's a sort of a public, it's not sort of, it is a public-private development. And it's hard, we normally would have two parties face to face. There'd be four people in the room, and you're negotiating and figuring out what the project will look like. As a public body, we can't do that. It makes it more difficult, I think, to get the project together on one hand, but on the other hand, it makes our expectations clear of the developer. If we're meeting with the developer, assuring that they know what we're interested in. Look, we want to know what your financial viability is going to be, and please don't wait until 90 days from now to tell us you've got a funding problem, or to tell us you want a bajillion dollar TIF, or on and on, or you're going to build something different. I want to avoid that, and I don't know which committee is best to avoid that. I know we can't negotiate one-on-one. I believe that was kind of done in the past in good faith, maybe with the city manager and the mayor negotiating to try and move it forward. There has to be some of that, but then that gives the opportunity for folks to second guess them also. And I just want to use the most efficient method to move this forward. Maybe George has a comment on that, having participated in the past, as to what might move this forward to get it done. And we don't know at the end of the day, it may not work with this developer. For folks on the committee, we may be back at this. Development is not a simple thing.
George, you want to follow up on Jim's comments?
I think that a separate group would be more, would make this move more quickly and more efficiently. I mean, if you look at us now, we're 2.5 hours into this meeting at this point. How much more could we add? Could we add another hour or 2-hour discussion with a developer once a month to this? I mean, it's unwieldy. I think it's too large a group, and it's too many. I think we have to break this out. And if it's a subgroup of this, a subcommittee of this with other people, and it's a public body, that's great. And then we report back to the larger group and keep us up to date every month. But if we have to meet twice a month, for instance, with a developer, how can we do that with a group of 12 people in the DDA and still transact our other business? It just seems like it's going to be entirely too burdensome for this group. I mean, this meeting, our meetings are getting I know it's Zoom, so it runs it slower, but a 2.5-hour meeting is a long meeting. And could we really drop another huge substantial item into this meeting over the next 3 months and try to get that done? I think it's too much.
Any additional comments before we act on the motion that's been offered by Jim and supported by Luke? Seeing none, Chad, can you call the roll call on the resolution? Vote on the resolution. So are we voting on the staff recommended resolution to set up the committee, or? Yeah. Yes. We are taking action on supporting staff's recommendation via the resolution.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. Ball line.
No.
Mayor Byer.
Yes.
Clayton.
You're muted.
Nope.
Kroom.
Yes.
Dewan.
Yes.
Hackney.
You're muted, Luke.
Luke,
No.
you're muted.
No.
Kruger.
No.
Lahanas.
Yes.
Rhodey.
Yes.
That motion passes 5-4.
Sorry.
Okay. And we will move on to item 6.6 on our agenda, which is the consideration of the Evergreen Properties tenant request. Heather?
Yes, so our property manager reached out. We have 2 different tenants at 2 different houses that have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 and had to move back home. They're also MSU students, and they've requested that due to COVID-19 that they be individually allowed out of their lease. So that would be a reduction of rent for 334 Evergreen of $500 with 3 months remaining for a total of $1,500. And for 340 Evergreen, it's a monthly rent reduction of $545 for a total amount of $1,635. And that's here for discussion.
I make a motion, we approve
I'll make a motion.
Jill.
Yeah. Second. Mike.
So, yeah, I'm sorry, who made the motion?
Jill.
Or Mike.
Jill, motion supported by Mike. Discussion on your motion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and have a vote on this. Chad, can you call the roll, please?
Sure. Ballline,
Yes.
Mayor Byer,
Yes.
Clayton. Clayton,
Clayton said yes.
sorry, thank you. Croom,
Yes.
Dewan,
Yes.
Hackney,
Yes.
Kruger,
Yes.
Lahanas,
Yes.
and Rahodi.
Yes.
Passes unanimously.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to any unfinished business. Seeing none, committee reports. We didn't have any committees other than the public policy and market development. Does anyone wish to speak about, I know we've covered a lot of ground. Anyone wish to speak about that meeting? Seeing.
So the only thing that we talk about were the food truck part of it, and I had a malfunction with my phone or my computer during that, so maybe someone else can speak on it. I am personally interested in allowing like ice cream trucks and stuff like that, so I would like people to be thinking about that as things go on. I think this is the perfect time for that, and I know other communities allow them.
Thank you.
Peter?
Yes, Jim?
Sorry to be Mr. After the fact, but on the last motion, does Heather know if the lease is joint and several between the tenants? Because reducing one tenant's rent by $500 just puts the obligation on the remaining tenants if it's joint and several.
So it may be written that way. The intention was that these tenants be allowed out and the responsibility not be put on the other tenants. So if the rent's $3,500, even if one tenant moves out, it's not going to remain $3,500. We're going to just take it down to $3,000.
Okay.
Thank you. Any additional comments about the project and market development? Perfect.
Yeah, so would what we voted on yesterday with the food truck, would that come back to this full board for full approval then? Would there be a chance to amendment? Okay.
Yes. So you're talking about the concessionaires policy?
Yeah, what Lindsay was discussing, because okay.
Yeah. So yes, the board approved, but due to the length of this agenda, as I stated yesterday, we planned on moving it to the next agenda and having those amendments made to it that were recommended by the committee.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Yep.
See no other comments about the subcommittee meeting. Was there anything else, parking task force, downtown management board, that we need to address?
We haven't met, no.
Okay.
No.
Any board member comments or concerns? Anyone wishing to make a comment before we adjourn? I don't see.
Just quick.
Go ahead.
Just quickly on the DMB, Ms. Schuessler wanted me to mention that they have a marketing subcommittee meeting next week to discuss the budget, fundraising, and marketing ideas for the downtown, and that they also have a survey out with responses due on Friday to assess what people think are the priorities in terms of getting back into business when we're allowed.
Thank you. Any board member comments?
Peter, I would say thanks to you for your leadership. These are tough times, and we appreciate your service and you agreeing to be chair.
Well,
as staff.
I appreciate everyone's participation in these meetings. They're not easy to get through. I think we're having some very healthy conversation. It's important to our downtown. We're trying, as we always do, to make good decisions on behalf of our business owners and downtown businesses. And I appreciate all the volunteer time that everyone puts into it, and clearly the work of the staff to help us be efficient in our meetings. So yes, Michael? Did you have a comment? No. I would make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll support.
It's been seconded by Luke. All those in favor say aye.
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 The meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.